Hi everyone, and welcome back to Creator in Conversation. This is your host, Owen Macaulay. Today is another two-part episode. Joining us is Emma Kubert. Emma is, of course, from a very illustrious family within the comic book industry. Her father is the great Andy Kubert. Her uncle is Adam Kubert. Her grandfather is Joe Kubert, for which the Joe Kubert School is both founded and named by. And Emma joined us at Dublin Comic Con last March, and this episode was recorded before a live audience in the TASQ art room. And if you come back next week, you'll hear a second part which is recorded before a live audience during a Joe Kubert School visit to TASQ art here on our campus as well. This conversation was just a lovely conversation. It was great crack, good conversation, lots of laughter, very engaging. We get to learn a lot about Emma's breakthrough into industry, her perspective towards creating comics, her preferences of storytelling, and it's just a lot of fun. So please sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of Creator in Conversation with Emma Kubert. So we're back for the final talk here at TASQ Art Room at Dublin Comic Con March 2025. And joining us to close things out is Miss Emma Kubert. How's it going, Emma?
It's going good. How's it going with you?
It's been really fun. Great positive energy at the show. I think this year it's definitely, we've put the comic in Comic Con with the guests, with the attendees. And have you checked out the young artist?
Yes, of course I have. How could I not? That was basically me when I was that age, so I get it.
And if that was in there, we have cute kids at Artist Alley, and then above them is puppies on level 2. It's like,
oh my gosh, I heard about the puppies.
It's just like so very unique experience at Dublin Comic Con. So this is, you were just saying just before we recorded, we bumped into Michael Carroll there from Judge Dredd just on the way out, and you were saying when you were like 3, you were passing through.
Yep.
Here and now this is really your first time. You did an amazing video on Instagram I caught yesterday of being a creator and artist to go out and new experience.
Oh yeah, that's a very, very important aspect to being an artist, just because we are always secluded, like pretty much so. I mean, I pretty much live, I'm at my house, pretty much 24/7, unless I'm going down to the Kubert School to go teach like once a week. I have, my studio at home. I have my setup. I got my cats there. So, so I got everything. I don't need anything else. But, I was saying this to someone else today, how like, you really do have to draw what you know, but if you don't know anything, what are you drawing, right? Mm-hmm. And to know things, you have to really experience things, and all kinds of things, not just art, but just like branch out into any kind of world that you like, in order to really just be an artist, because as an artist, you're really recording the present moment, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like, if you don't have anything else in your brain besides, like how to technically draw this arm, you have a technically drawn good arm, and that's about it.
It's really interesting. My background is teaching in animation, but my lifelong passion is comics. And there's a debate among the academics here in Ireland about where does sequential art fit in the education of animation. Now, obviously, animation is sequential art, but I'm not going to name names, but certain organizations decided we're removing the module specifically of sequential art from the curriculum, and they said we're going to do storyboarding, more storyboarding. I'm like, what?
Okay.
And like, it's that meme from Dodgeball. It's a ball, will it cut and will it walk? So the response was this academy, the TASQ Art Academy, was the response to it. But I find when I'm teaching, I teach a little bit of business and brand and marketing as well, but I teach to architecture students, fashion students, to graphic design communication students, games and animation. They're all in the room at the same time.
Yeah.
So you teach it as a framework. But what I find myself leaning onto is kind of the same you saying about experiences, was when you go to write a comic or to tell a good story, you don't just do that by consuming just comics or superhero. You need to go to the museum, galleries, and that's where the inspiration kind of takes in.
I actually majored in animation and storyboarding before I went into comics. decided it wasn't for me.
What made that decision? Was it the pipeline, the turnaround, or was it?
Well, let me tell you, like, I'll tell you a little bit about, like, me growing up in, the family that I grew up in, which is the Kubert family, which is a very prominent family in the industry. And so I grew up pretty much surrounded by comics and surrounded by art. I grew up the town next to the Kubert School, and my entire family is a part of it. My dad taught there. Obviously, my grandpa and grandma ran it. My mom created a business attached to it. That's the art store. So it's very, very involved. And I grew up loving all kinds of art. I did not grow up loving comics. So and I know that's like it might be taboo to say, but no, I truly wasn't really exposed to comics that I could truly relate to. Like, most of the boxes of comics that we got at our house were like DC Comics. And do you think, a 12, 13-year-old girl relates to Bruce Wayne? No, not really.
I wonder what.
I wonder. So that's when I really turned to animation, and I turned to a lot of other different arts, like performing arts, music, all that different stuff. And so doing all different kinds of art really opened my eyes, but I just kind of felt like I was searching for the right storytelling medium for myself, and it ended up being coming home to comics. I tried every single thing besides comics, and when I tried comics, that was the path.
To me, that translation is, it's The Godfather. You're Michael Curry,
Yep.
and then you end up on your way in. That's it. That's how the dramatization of the family story has to go now. What's that thing? Succession. That's it. The common Succession.
No, it was honestly like I loved growing up in a comic book family. Like, I think it's one of the coolest things to be able to say my dad draws Batman,
Yeah.
I was always really proud of that fact. And plus, I love my family. Like, they're just good people in general, and they were really great parents and very supportive. So growing up, they never pressured me to do anything. They just like let me do whatever I wanted to do with my life. And, all I wanted to do was art, whatever that was. I don't know, but it did come to a time, like when I was in American high school, where I sat down with my grandpa Joe. I was doing Saturday classes at the Kubert School, which are the kids' classes. And I was just like, Grandpa, I don't know. Like, I don't know what to choose. Should I go more into like performing arts, or should I do drawing, or what should I do? And he was basically just like, don't do what you just want to do. Do what you feel like you have to do. And like, for me, I just felt like I just had to draw. Like, that was what I was doing for my entire existence ever since I could hold a pencil, and I was never going to stop. So I was just like, okay, you got it, Grandpa.
It's amazing. And what was your grandfather's motivation for starting the school, as inspiration for the school? Is it just, was he always passionate about teaching, or was it just came as?
Well, I would say there's a bunch of different sources that can come from that. My grandpa really started the school, one, because there wasn't really a school for comic book art. Like, he wanted to have a community and a place for everyone to come to learn properly how to draw comics. And I mean, you spoke to Anthony, but the school is basically like a comic book boot camp. So you're drawing, like 10 to 12 hours a day for 3 years straight. And that's exactly how my grandpa wanted it. He wanted to like simulate an artist's life, But the other reason was because a lot of comic book artists, they don't get paid as well.
Yeah.
I think that's a huge part of being a comic book artist and in this industry that can be really hard, and a lot of people struggle with it. So what he wanted to do was also create a place where he can hire people to have to make a living being a part of the comics industry, but not necessarily rely always on just the page rate of a comic book artist.
Yeah, absolutely. Because there's a lot of, even now in any industry, it's no longer the 9 to 5 and get to go watch at the end that our parents would have gotten. It's what we call now a gig economy, where everyone has multiple different roles.
Yep.
But what's great is with something like sequential art and animation, as you mentioned, it's not too far removed from animation or games. So you can find work constantly, and if your passion is art, is storytelling, you can always find your way. And that's why I'm a firm believer in education, where a lot of people be like, I can go on YouTube and learn this. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot you can be self-taught. Even now with the internet, there's more tools. But the formative feedback, the sense of community, as you mentioned, it can be an isolating or lonely experience, but when you're starting, it's nice to build and form a network, a community. It's interesting because obviously Colin Griffin recommended Anthony to me, who Anthony, yourself, and Brittany. So this goes to show, and it's not like a click. It's just that how it happens. People know people, and you reach out, form that community.
It's a very small industry, so it's very much like word of mouth, talking to people, networking. I would say the entertainment industry in general, a lot of it is networking, and a lot of it is getting yourself there so that you can show your work and get hired.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was so, look, I was just saying to it might be to Tony here about when we nearly didn't get you at the show.
Yeah.
We had a storm, and then nearly the first time we met by email, power outage. And I'm only getting the email. I was getting date on my phone. I was like, I'm really sorry, there's no power right now. I promise I'm not ignoring. And then I did. When you guys arrived, then it was so funny because you guys have been great guests, the host, and Kyle dropped you off, and you guys went exploring, and then there was a conversation like, okay, so who's checked in with Anthony, Emma, and Brittany? Liz? Wait, I felt that moment in Home Alone. I was like, we lost the comic kids. At least it's not St. Patrick's Day. Oh, no. That's on Monday. But thankfully it's worked out. And have you noticed anything within the Irish comic scene? Have you gotten any vibes that this seems uniquely Irish? Or is it just, no, this seems like comics just as it would be back home?
No, to me, it honestly seems like comics very similar to comics back home, just a bit smaller. Because honestly, comics are pretty much the same way in America. Comic book artists, as we said, they work in their own studios. They're freelancers, so they're all across the country and the world. So when you get to talk to them at conventions, like when you get to meet up with ones that live across the country from you, it's a really special and unique experience to be able to do that. Now, is it a good idea for antisocial creators to just be bombarded all of a sudden? I don't know, but it all depends on what you like and what you like to do. Because there's some creators that really like conventions, some that will do just like a couple of them, and it all depends on what you like.
Have you found the teaching experience yourself? It's your YouTube, but your Instagram page, really insightful videos. You're very deft at social media, which is, trust me, a skill I wish I had in more abundance. But you have that ability, probably from comics, concisely get it down into it. And how's that been for you, helping others start their journey in the field?
I feel like I've just kind of started that journey on social media, because I was just talking to Colin about this too, that for the past couple of months, I've been really trying to push the education side of comics. And it's one, because I don't really see a whole lot of creators doing that so much. I see sometimes writers doing it, but a lot of artists, it's honestly really tough to record yourself all the time as an artist, just because you don't want to show off work that sucks. And it can be really daunting when you're making mistakes in front of people, because that is what part of being an artist is like finding the right pose or finding, the right layout. And it takes a lot of trial and error to go through that. And when you're really frustrated, you don't want a stupid camera in your face a lot of the time. But the thing is, I personally think that this industry needs that transparency. Just because, like, when you see like a perfect drawing on the internet, no one really knows how it's done. You don't really see the behind the scenes of it. So to me, I think it's important for people, especially that are up and coming or they want to break into the industry, to see that it really takes a lot of dedication, hard work, frustration to get your work to a point where it can be publishable. And I I would not call myself a social media connoisseur either. Like, I'm still figuring it out myself, just because I'm figuring out what works for me, what doesn't, and the kind of videos that I do like to make. But to me, teaching really, really helps with those kinds of videos. Like, I love teaching. Teaching is one of my biggest passions as well. And it's just because I think it's important to pass the knowledge along to anyone who wants it, not just people at school, but anyone who wants it, because school is not just getting the knowledge. There's more to the experience than just that. So yeah, that's essentially what I really want to do. And I want to really help the next generation of comic book artists come through and really feel like they're supported in that kind of way, and showcase, like, you can do this too. Like, you can see that I'm pulling my hair out over here. You can do that too. No. But no, it's like, if you feel frustrated, I'm also frustrated with like how my work comes out sometimes. And I want you to know that it's okay, and that all you got to do is just keep going, because once you give up, that's it. Like, you're done. If you give up, that's it. So just keep going, keep drawing, keep moving on to the next one.
See, this how come I know you're doing a great job with the social media and teaching, because there's more empathy, less apathy. Because with social media, a lot of people, they think it's a competition.
Yeah.
But really, comics by its very nature is collaborative.
Yeah.
And so that ability, and then as you were saying, be able to share frustrations, and that, it's not the keyboard elves that make the comics now doing it. It's good. Like, I'm something of like a process junkie. I love to know like what's happening here, and with artist edition books that are coming in.
Yes, I love artists. I was just showing some of my classes. We have a Al Williamson artist edition, like the Star Wars one. We have like Xenozoic Tales. I have obviously some Joe Kubert ones. So it's those artist editions are like my favorite.
It's great. It's such a good. Scott Dubniers now. He's starting his fourth act, isn't it?
Oh, that's so awesome.
Yeah, it's his new company doing it. So he instigated it, and now he has a new.
Oh, that's awesome.
Beginning. So I'm looking forward to see he.
Yeah, I want to see too.
It's I know it's brilliant. And so in terms of outside of teaching, and then more focused within production side. So what was your first published works, your first projects? And
my first ever project was working on the Teen Titans Raven graphic novel for DC Comics. I was a layout artist for Gabriel Piccolo. And honestly, that really just set the tone for the next years, like up until probably this moment, because like, as I said before, growing up, I didn't truly see a place for me in comics. I didn't see things that I related to. I didn't see the way that I like to draw until I was actually interning at DC in the manufacturing department. And my boss gave me a giant omnibus of Amanda Connor's Harley Quinn.
Great.
And he was like, okay, like, here are the Post-it notes, make all the corrections, but also, Emma, do some reading. Like, read that book. I think you'd like it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I even did those corrections. I literally just sat and I read that book, and the art was just absolutely beautiful. It was expressive. It was animated. It was so fun. And Amanda Connor is one of my favorite artists in the industry. So like that just kind of sparked a little bit of like, I don't know, like maybe I could do this. Like maybe there is a place for me in this. Maybe I don't have to draw like my dad or like Joe Kubert, you know? So I was just I was like, okay, this is like the first spark to thinking where I can go with this. And when I went to the Kubert School, you know, I still had my, I guess, trepidations just because, again, so many kids go there wanting to draw superheroes and wanting to draw in a house style. And now it's a little bit more diverse, but back then it really kind of was that. So I didn't know if I would have my place there. But in my third year, they do portfolio reviews with different companies, and I had a portfolio review with DC Comics, and they liked the layouts that I was drawing. So that's honestly essentially how I got hired for that. And again, it just opened my eyes because it was an all new section of DC Comics where they're focused on young adults and going through more of like slice of life type of stories, even though there's still a superhero mystery, all that stuff involved with those books, but they really deal with like the growing up and the problems of like the interpersonal problems of the characters. So I was just like, I think this is for me. Like I think I want to do this. And that's essentially like where my career kind of went, is like I've been working, you know, on more of like the young adult type of stuff that has been published, and I absolutely love it.
That's amazing. And you mentioned towards the start, like being like 13-year-old girl and like Batman costume as a deal. Have you seen, has it been getting better? Have you seen positive changes in ways, still work to go? Or do you think it's more accessible now, more choice?
I think it's way more accessible now. You know, it's because like again, growing up, I feel like I personally just missed the wave. Like I've just missed like the Scholastic Smile kind of graphic novels. I just missed well, not Dog Man, that's for you little kids. But like those kinds of graphic novels where if I were that age, I would have eaten those up.
Yeah.
So that's why at that age I did turn to animation, because that was the closest to what I wanted. But essentially when I decided, okay, I'm going to go into comics, that's when I was just like, okay, that's what I want to do. I want to basically draw stories for my 12, 13-year-old self because she missed out.
That's amazing. And so interesting how you thought of animation first, because that had, so obviously you're sitting in close proximity to Declan Shalvey. And also, not here, but I was a great guest at the show, Stephen Mooney. You might have seen Stephen over the weekend. And like, I know Stephen in particular went to Ballyfermot. So did Colin, I think, might have gone to Ballia IADT, but a lot of people studied animation because not so much out of, they wanted to, they had an interest, but there was nothing to cover comics specifically in the country. So it's just, it's similar, but a reverse echo of ways where like animation was where everyone went for decades because there wasn't anything pure comics into it as well. It's just funny how things like that just walk out into it.
But you were saying that, you know, they're figuring out what the spectrum is for comics versus animation. And I kind of think of it as a whole in like the commercial storytelling, where on one end is film and television, and then on the other is like prose, books, novels. And in the middle, there's comics that lean a little more towards the book side, and then there's animation that leans a little more towards the film side. But they're still both right next to each other, like in the middle. You just need to emphasize different things about it.
No, absolutely. Yeah, even Brian Hitch, a lot of his stuff with widescreen.
Yeah.
Like that, basically defined the aesthetics for the MCU.
Yeah, I mean, another artist that I've looked up to since my time at the Kubert School is Sarah Pichelli.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I'm sorry if I'm butchering her name, but when I learned that she was a storyboard artist and she would go back and forth between comics and story, I was just like, maybe I can do that. Like that's good, and it makes sense just because you're using the same exact skill set going back and forth between them, and it just it just clicked for me. I was like, I can do it all.
This next question might be a heavy one, but it's just something that comes up quite a bit in our conversations, particularly since we began recording for Creating Conversation, and it's around the emergence of AI. That's because it's one of the most, disruptive tools to the industry in one hand, but I often cling to something Brian Bendis had mentioned, which was he remembers when Photoshop became a thing and everyone thought that might lead to agencies, but it became a tool. Even around, we were doing portfolio reviews, but we were clear to stipulate no generative AI within it. And from the perspective that I've been sharing, my big concern is the how socioeconomic factors, like particularly in certain classes, that it might be a way to, you can no longer afford to purchase, let's say, a comic drawn by hand, because of it's the same way like going to the opera, stage performance.
I understand what you're saying.
But to consider, so we've been kind of looking at from the point of view of like, we're here to preserve skills, make it accessible, remind people the craft. Has that been a conversational topic around either among the school in your profession of AI? Is that have people accepted it as it exists but we don't see it replacing anything, or we see it exists but we need to safeguard now for what we're doing?
I think of it as the first of what you said. It's something that exists, but I don't see it replacing human art.
Yeah.
And it's just because AI needs human art to survive. Like if it was just AI and no more artists, it would have nothing else, So to me, it's just kind of like, and also the other thing too is that creators who work in this industry, who have these careers, they're not doing it. And they're not doing it, and they're pretty much all against it of what I've learned. But I do think that it can be a good tool if it is regulated and if you know how to use it, I guess, in the right way. But again, I can't see it replacing anything just because art is human. It is a recording of the human experience. So when you're replacing that with some computer generated stolen thing, it's a stolen thing. And that's like honestly all I think about it as such. Like you get something special when it's created by a person rather than a computer. So yeah, I would say to me, I'm not too worried. As I said, if it becomes like more of a regulated tool like Photoshop or like Procreate or any of the other computer programs we have, I think it could be very beneficial for artists, like especially if you're learning how to draw and you need to learn like how to do a certain angle, right? And if you have a little bit of help referencing that to learn from, I think that's really great, but not to copy, not to trace, not to take and call your own, because it's not your own, it's something else generating it. And essentially it just, again, I just don't think it's gonna replace humans.
No, it's I do see it as a tool. Like the positive outlook I have on it is, this is how we get the holodecks and Star Trek going. That's kind of how I've been looking. I'm like, I really want my holodeck. Like get that immersive video game experience.
Yeah.
But no, this has been wonderful. Thanks so much for taking the time. How have you found your neighbours in Artist Alley? I didn't realise you're beside Declan and CB. Have you met CBs?
Yes, I've met CB before, and they're both very, very nice. Declan I've never met before, and he's just a sweetheart. He's a really big fan of my dad, Andy. And and me and Brittany were like messing with him.
Ah, good.
But that was so fun. Like, I think it's hilarious.
Get him on FaceTime. I suppose.
Exactly. It was like, Declan, do you want to FaceTime? No, I'm kidding. But it was very funny.
That's amazing. Well, I hope you've enjoyed the experience. I hope this won't be the last time you consider coming back again.
It's not going to be the last time, I promise. I think Ireland is absolutely such a beautiful country. And when I came here, I was just like, this kind of reminds me of home. Because it's very similar to like the northeast of America. Just because it's the same kind of climate. It's a very similar climate. Kind of, honestly, a little bit of a similar culture, especially in like a New York, New Jersey kind of culture. It's just, different accents, and you just gotta make sure you know how to listen for them.
No, not me though. My accent's so neutral,
That's it.
I'm ending on that note. No, thanks so much. This has been great. And listen, we'll talk again soon.
Yeah, of course.
Thanks again, everyone, for joining us for this episode of Credit and Conversation. And my thanks once more to Emma Kubert for taking the time out to speak with us at Dublin Comic Con. And of course, my thanks to Dublin Comic Con as well for always providing us the space to be able to host these workshops, talks, and to record these episodes of Credit and Conversation. By now, you would have heard a few episodes recorded live from past editions of Dublin Comic Con. Be sure to join us again next week. We'll be delivering part 2 of today's episode. This episode was recorded before a live audience during a Joe Kubert School visit to TASQ. It was in the Apex Theatre, which is a 90-seat theatre located in the Priory Market in Tallaght. So this is a lot like the part 2 episode of the Anthony Marquis episode, which you can go back into our stream and listen to as well. So look forward to you all reaching the next episode next week. Until then, this has been a copyright production of Macaulay Consultancy 2025.